welcome to Indie Business Radio for January 12th, 2009, the first show of the new year. I'm your host, Donna Maria, and you have arrived at the one place where we empower you to enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way. Today's media partner is the Indie Shopping Network, the only e-portal combining live online television and chat, connecting you with the best in indie and handmade products. Forget the big box stores and mass-produced whatchamacallits. Buy Indie at the Indie Shopping Network at indieshopping.tv. Well, this is the first Indie Business Radio show of 2009, and what better way to kick things off than with the question of how you will challenge yourself this year. As women business owners, there's so much work to do. There's business, there's family, there's self. How do you balance it all? Does it make sense to even try? And forget about balance. Just barely keeping up in any sense of the word is an accomplishment in my book in and of itself. My guest today says it's possible to implement lasting change in this area. She's Brook Noel, author of no less than 19 women's empowerment books, including her latest, The Change Your Life Challenge. Brook has collaborated on a variety of media outlets, including CNN Headline News, ABC World News, Fox, Friends, and Bloomberg Radio. She has been recognized as one of the top 40 business people under the age of 40 by the Business Journal, and she was featured in Entrepreneur Magazine in 2005. Brook joins us from her home office in Wisconsin, where she lives with her husband and her daughter. Welcome to Indie Business Radio, Brook.
Thank you so much, Donna Maria. Great to be here.
You know, I have to apologize for calling you Brooks. My son's name is Brooks, so it's going to be hard for me to keep the S off the end there, but I'm going to do my best. If you guys have any questions out there listening today, please email them to us at info@indiebusinessradio.com. We'll do our best to ask them for you. Brook, it's so great to have you. I am looking at your books here, the Change Your Life Challenge, and also your publisher was kind enough to send me Good Morning, 365 Positive Ways to Start Your Day. And, Brook, you and I go back quite a few years. I've known you for a while, and one thing I can say is that you are a busy lady. So let's start with a little bit of background about who Brook is and how she's developed this sort of lifestyle expertise to help women juggle everything these days.
Well, sure. I began writing long ago, as you can tell by the number of books I've written. Somewhere around the age of 16 or 17, I started on my first book, and I just turned 35, so I'm getting up there here, trying to do a book a year, I guess. But I've always had my own business from about age 20 on. Just started with the waitress money that I had earned and began in book publishing, and now I'm fortunate to have a publisher that does all that hard work for me. I just get to do the writing. But I run a online community called Make Today Matter, which is based on the Change Your Life Challenge book that you have there. And basically where this stemmed from was back in 2003. I hit a point in my life where things just seemed out of balance, out of kilter. I had many of those days, that were great days, right, where everything kind of goes and flows and you're in the zone. But I was having even more of the bad days, the ones where maybe nothing, earth-shattering happens, but you go to bed at the end of the day and you're not really quite sure what you did, and the days just roll one into another. And I thought there has to be, some way, some reason that we end up having these great days and then the not-so-good days. And I began a quest, and I asked readers, do you want to help me? Do you want to help me figure out ways that we can find more fulfillment? And 3,000 women joined me, and we worked through a methodic strategy, and that became this book, The Change Your Life Challenge, and the Make Today Matter program.
So, Brooke, take me back to that time in 2003. You said that things were, of course, thank God you had some good days, but I understand what you're saying by, there were far too many ones that didn't fit into that category. What was your life like at that time? How old was your daughter, and what was going on that kind of made it that way that led you to start this journey?
Well, in 2003, Sammy would have been 8 years old, and I had overcome quite a few obstacles in the recent years. And I think that kind of led just sort of a depletion of my resources. I had lost my brother tragically. I had was about to learn, I hadn't at that time, that my father was sick and I would lose him. I had just moved from Portland to Wisconsin, and it was a move that I was not excited about and didn't want to come back to Wisconsin. We had moved to Portland, and I loved it there. So there was all these challenges going on, and I had just kind of come off this roller coaster. So I like to think of it as one of those dips, one of those phases in your life where everything that you know, your entire foundation has been shaken. And I had reached a new point in my business. I had, the book industry was changing, and I knew I needed to make some changes with it. And, for once my direction wasn't that clear. So that focus that I was so used to having that kind of kept me on my toes, it was shaken up in all dimensions, in an emotional aspect, in a physical aspect. I began to take less care of myself living back in Wisconsin than I did in the better weather. So I really was just at this point where, and I think we all reach that, where you wonder, what pieces do I pick up, and do I have the strength to pick them up again?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you talk about it from that perspective, too, and thank you for sharing personally, because while all women haven't gone through the same things that you have, certainly the net effect of, you use the word depleted, is something that we can all relate to.
Well, and it's so relative, too, because, a lot of people, when they hear my story, they say, oh, well, I should be thankful I didn't have to go through this or through that. And it doesn't, we should never compare ourselves to one another because it's all relative in our life. Whatever we're facing, for one person, a stubbed toe could have the same emotional impact. We just don't know. So it's important to always recognize and, know the struggles you are facing.
Right. And so it's the start of a new year, Brooke, and we all hear about resolutions and goals, and we have different sorts of perceptions about what those terms mean at the start of a new year. So tell us this. Is this a good time to sort of look at some of the concepts in your Change Your Life Challenge book and rev up our engines?
Well, I'll tell you, it's always the most popular time of year for my books and the program in general because people are thinking about change, and there's that external pressure of everyone, well, what's your resolution? But that's not the reason to do it. And I don't think the standard typical resolutions are the way to go either, because we make those every year, and we're usually done by February. They're very hard to stick to. And really nothing magical happens except a calendar year changes. Mm-hmm. It's not like we're going to get a bunch more time or a bunch more energy necessarily. There's no magic. So it's important, I think, to look at a balanced approach, and that's really what I try to promote. Is instead of making these 10 lofty resolutions of I'm going to exercise every single day and I'm going to have a salad every single day and drink 10 glasses of water and do this and do that, to look at true life balance. And I was just listening into Oprah the other day and her struggle with weight and how she's finally realized, look, I need to find balance. And health. And that's what this program is about. It's about, getting rid of all these superficial external things that we chase, thinking they're going to bring us this inner peace or this happiness, and going back and looking at what is my unique need for balance. What's the makeup for balance for me?
Then let's start with that. What exactly is balance then? If that's what we're looking for, how do we, and I know each woman will define it differently, but how do you sort of help people wrap their hands around that as the goal as opposed to something else?
Well, the tool we use is called a snapshot, and we'll give the site later because you can download a free snapshot. But the snapshot has basically 17 life areas, and we work through a series of exercises that allow women to see, or anyone for that matter, where their true priority is. Okay?
The snapshot's available for people to look at while they're listening to the show, right?
Yeah, if you go to maketodaymatter.net and click on freebies at the top, you'll see the snapshot.
Great. Okay, so everyone can go take a look at that. Just wanted to make sure while we're following along here that we can take a look at it. And there it is. Okay, so please continue.
So what we do is we go through and we have people, we do this exercise actually like every month because our priorities change a lot. And sometimes we forget that and we stick to these outdated priorities or stick to something for a year when really maybe health is my focus this month and family time next month. So we use the snapshot tool to guide people. Most importantly, we use it to help rediscover what a person's true priorities are, not what others want their priorities to be. And I see this a lot with women especially. You know, they come to this program and they say, I don't even really know who I am anymore. You know, I'm just not sure.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the snapshot, and I love it. It kind of goes along. There's another graphic in the book, too, where there's a circle in the center, and then each snapshot general life area is around it, sort of looking like a wheel. But this is a very useful tool. Again, everyone, it's maketodaymatter.net. Click on freebies at the top, and about a quarter of the way down, you'll see the snapshot. You can just click go and open that up. So, Brooke, let's go through each of these areas are the most important ones. I know they're probably not listed in any particular order here. As you said, every woman is different. But let's take a look at some of the ones that you found the most profound in terms of women's needs when you were doing your research for the book.
Sure. Well, actually, they're all important. And they're all important at different times for different people. And that's what's so unique about the program is that we don't lump everyone into one category, and people can work on their unique needs. And it's okay to have one area higher than the other. We really discourage people from seeking, perfectionism in all areas because that's such an elusive goal. Instead, we look at balance as what makes you feel good, what makes you live optimally each day. So, there are, of course, certain areas that I see women working with more and more and more. And most interestingly, I always find, is the self-time, the self-care area. Because people get so wrapped up caring for other people, they forget to take care of themselves. And that always will lead to energy depletion. I talk in my book about your emotional bank account, and that we each have an emotional bank account that's similar to a financial bank account. And every time we give to others, we're taking a withdrawal, okay? And we have to deposit back into that. And we deposit it by, activities we enjoy, hobbies, self-time. And if we don't do that, we'll, of course, overdraft, and eventually we could go bankrupt, and all on an emotional, sense. So we do see that a lot as something people struggle with, and trying to reconcile that self-time is not selfish, because that's the stereotype is, well, this is, I should be doing something for somebody else, or I should be working on my, when we talk about business owners, I should be working on my business, I should be working. Well, you know what? If you own your own business, it's never going to leave. You could always be working on it.
And it's interesting you say that. I counted 14 categories in the snapshot. I'll just run down them really quickly for anybody who may be listening and they don't have their computer in front of them. I'll just list them in the order they're here. Time management, information management, relationships, money management, self-time, attitude and outlook, self-esteem, household maintenance, health, energy, religion and spirituality, community, meal planning, and something you call main hat, which you describe as the area you spend most of your time, for example, at work or in your business or volunteering or whatever that is. So how do we use this chart to sort of begin our journey, Brooke?
Well, basically what you do is the first thing we go through is I ask people, for example, to imagine the life area. So if we were to take time management, and I would ask you to imagine your life running effectively. So you're managing your time, you're in control, you're where you need to be on time, your deadlines are handled, you feel like time is on your side. Okay? Now, think about that on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, 1 being low. Okay? How important is that to you to have that in your life? And then I would ask you to circle that number.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I would ask, now think about your life today, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it in relationship to the number you just circled?
Ah, okay. So you kind of get to rate yourself.
Right, you'd make a mark around that. And then we subtract that number from the other number. And the ones with the biggest deltas are the areas most out of alignment.
Okay, okay.
So it helps you discover them without you consciously saying, rank them from 1 to 14, because often what I find is where people need to work isn't actually where they think they do. And I'll give you an example with health. I had someone who came to me who really thought if they could just get their health together, if they could just eat better, that was what they needed to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I did their snapshot, and I noticed their biggest delta was in time management. Actually, you need more time, because if you had time to grocery shop and prepare meals, you would eat healthy meals. You just don't have the time to do it. So we carved out the time, and the health came automatically. Okay? So it helps you see the interconnectedness of so many different life areas.
Yeah, and that interconnectedness, that's such a perfect example of that. We're talking with Brook Noel, the author of the Change Your Life Challenge, and we're going through her Change Your Life snapshot at her website at maketodaymatter.net. We're going to take our first break. This is Indie Business Radio. Don't touch that mouse. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding Internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted Internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the Internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. We're talking with Brook Noel, the author of the Change Your Life Challenge. And by the way, if you are around at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern tonight, I'd like to invite you to join me to talk even further about the tips that Brook is suggesting today live on my Indie Cafe. And all you need to do that is to just log on to IndieLive.tv at 10 o'clock Eastern Time tonight, January 12th. Click on the link for the Indie Cafe, and you'll be joined by me and dozens of other indies who are going to be talking about getting the week off to a good start. We're going to be positively uplifting and encouraging each other, sharing tips, and we're also going to be talking about some of the concepts that Brook is sharing with us in today's show. So, Brook, before we took a break, you were telling us about a woman who had some health issues she wanted to deal with, and the core issue was time, and once she was able to carve out appropriate shopping time, that she was able to address her issue. So what happened to her health after she did that for a while?
Well, amazingly, of course, as one might expect, she began to see the improvements that she had been seeking. So here she had been on this treadmill, trying program after program, South Beach, Weight Watch, you name it.
Right.
But she'd been looking for the wrong thing. So she began to then also see rewards in other areas. Her esteem, of course, began to rise. Her relationships, she had more energy. I mean, all of these things began to improve. But most importantly, the biggest change was that she let go of thinking she knew all of the answers up front. You know, a lot of times we think we know what's best for us, and time again, we don't. You know, it's if we keep getting keep doing what you've always been doing, you'll keep getting what you've always been getting. And so opening yourself up to a new process or a new idea is so important, and that's when I see people really make the big changes.
Wow, and that's such an interesting point to make, because in your list of your snapshot, it's tempting for us to look down that list and go, I need all this. I mean, what woman couldn't look at that list and say, okay, I could improve or be helped by, working on any one of these issues? But finding one of the ones that's really, really a core of the problem is really where it all starts, doing this self-analysis, right?
Exactly, because that is very well playing into many of those other life areas. So instead of trying to do it all, it's so great to know that if you focus on the one area or two areas that really, really most need your attention, you're likely going to see better results in those other areas too. The problem is when we try to do 10 things at the same time.
Right, and I love one of the quotes from the first chapter in your book, right here at the heading. It says, if you do not change direction, you may end up where you're heading.
That's really, that sums up why this program was created. Was I woke up one day and thought, I don't want to go this direction.
I don't want to end up where I'm heading. I love that. That's such a good thought to remember. It's one of those ones where you want to tape it to your wall or your laptop or whatever, because it applies to business and personal and marriage, the whole 9 yards. So, Brooke, you've got another example of someone who effectively used the snapshot to make some positive changes.
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite stories. Was this woman came to me, and she had heard about my time management programs and all the different things I do, and she came and she said, I want to buy some of your planning tools. I want to get all your worksheets and your planning tool system. And it's why I don't have a system like that. It's all, I have a book or I have an online program, but I don't just sell a worksheet, or a package. And she said, well, I don't need all of that. All I need are some worksheets. I need this. And so woman was very professional, and she said, I don't care what it costs. I'll buy it. And I said, well, I can't help you. I don't sell it like that. And I wasn't trying to be difficult. It was just simply, I felt this type of person before who was just so determined and so struggling. They wanted a quick fix, and I knew it didn't work like that. And she said, well, let me show you my planner. Maybe you can just look at my planner. And she pulls out she had 3 planners with her, okay? All different systems that she's used. And if she's listening, I'm sure she's laughing. She knows I tell this story. And she was showing them to me, and I noticed, I said, which year's which? So show me in order. And I said, do you see something here? And she said, what? And I said, do you notice your planner gets bigger and bigger each year, and your writing gets smaller and smaller?
Mm.
I said, I don't think you have a time management problem. I said, what are your 3 top values? And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, just what are your 3 top values? What do you value most? She said, well, do you want my work values? Do you want my family values? Do you want my... I said, no, I just want you to tell me your 3 top values. And she could not answer the question.
Well, let me ask you a question then right there. Is it generally a mistake to try and categorize our lives that way then? It sounds like she had compartmentalized everything. She had more than one planner, and then her answer to your question was, well, what do you mean what matters to me? In which area?
Exactly. And yes, it is a problem, because that's why her writing was getting so small. She had to write in 3 for family, 3 for goals, 3 for work, 3 for finance. I mean, she had put so much pressure on herself, but she needed the big guiding values. And those are what we can judge any decision by. If we know what our true values are, and something comes across, I can use those to make a decision of yes or no.
Right.
And she was trying to do everything, have it all, and just trying to fit it all into a day. She needed a 36-hour day or more, okay? And she was never going to get one. and somehow she thought my time management sheet would give her $36.
Mm-hmm.
It would. And so basically I said to her, I said, can we do the snapshot? I said, can I just walk you through it? And she said, okay. And so we did. And then I told her, I said, you need some self-discovery. You need to know your 3 guiding values because you need to cut off about half of what you've written on your calendar.
Right.
Because it's not going to make you happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what happened?
Funny, she actually not only did that, she went on to become a life coach. Because she really saw where she had taken, the wrong road. And she had bought into so much of the commercialization and the marketing that goes around self-improvement, emotional health, that if she just did this or just did that, and she was just trying to do all of them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she began to see, there's a great, reason to just take some self-reflection time, and look within, because the more we look externally and the more we chase these external solutions, the further away we get from ourselves. And that's what had happened to her over the years. So she took some time, and went back and kind of reunited with herself. And that's really kind of what I want to encourage listeners to do, too, in 2009, is to, instead of chasing the external or just making some resolutions so you have some, if somebody asks you, spend some time with yourself thinking about what really would make make this year matter for you.
Ooh, that's such a good question. I so love that question. It's not about goals or resolutions. What in your life could you change, or do you think needs to change in order to make this a better year for you?
Yeah, and
that internalizes the question. That's a really good one. So, Brooke, tell me this. What sorts of things can we expect or ask of our significant others to help us through this process?
Well, we have a lot of people that actually work on the program together. They try to enlist not only their significant others, but if they have children, they try to get kids, working on the program too, because the program's about positive life change, making the year better, making the day better. So who doesn't benefit from that, right? So, with significant others specifically, of course, we want their support, right, and their openness. And we, of course, need to be giving that in order to receive it as well. But typically we find, and it's real interesting because one of the things we do in the online program is we have what's called an online sprint. And we have a sprint room that's open 16 hours a day where people get together. In fact, they're probably listening now because they tend to do that when I'm on the radio. And we sprint and we work on something for 30 minutes. And then we take 20 minutes. We take a 10-minute chat break, and then we do it again. And it helps people get through drudgery tasks or just stay accountable and stay focused. You can work on work stuff, or you can clean, you can exercise, anything. And usually the spouses laugh in the beginning. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? You're spending too much time on the computer. About a month later, they are the biggest fans of our sprint room because so much is getting done, around the house. And of course, since there's the camaraderie of a group, women are having fun. They're in a better mood. So, there's all these benefits. So spouses and partners usually will get on board. But sometimes, especially if you've gone program to program to program, it's going to take your commitment for about 30 days. So they see it's something you're going to stick with and not just another, search for another solution that could be abandoned.
So it's really important to review, to commit to it yourself, and then have a chat with your significant others. And I do include children, spouses. By significant others, I didn't just mean spouses. To sit down with those people who are going to have to adjust their lives somehow to allow you the time that you need to do this, and let them know that you are committed and that you're willing to be accountable to this.
Definitely. Definitely. It's great if you can get a family member to work with you, or someone that you're with all the time. We created the community for people, that don't have that or need more accountability or just want some fun women friends, But that accountability is so important. And if they do the program as well, they're going to have benefit. So it is definitely something that can be done together. I have a gal in New York who her daughter has she's in grade school yet, but she's adapted quite a few. One of our steps is a good morning, starting your day with a good morning. We had a child who was in a parade who painted the words "Good morning" on his float. So there are ways to get everyone involved, and that will help us. Of course, that'll always help when you're trying to make a change, because when you're alone making a change, it's real challenging. You have the ups and downs.
We do invite that kind of accountability. Can you give us some tips on how? Because some people are really, number one, they're terrified of holding us accountable because they don't want to hurt our feelings or make us feel bad, and then other times they don't want to do it sometimes because it is a commitment from them as well to hold us accountable. They have to actually do it and put forth some effort to do that. So what are some tips in terms of requesting that accountability that you can offer, Brooke?
Well, the first thing is to make sure you're asking for that from the right person.
Okay.
You want to make sure that person wants you to succeed, isn't going to say "I told you so" if you don't, and won't let you off the hook. Okay?
Oh, that's good. Those are three great things. Say those again. They want you to succeed, won't say "I told you so," and won't let you off the hook. Ooh, see, that's a job.
And exactly. And we don't all have those people in our lives either. We have to be honest. Do we have someone like that in our household? We may not. And
right.
That's not bad, but, times are tough right now, right? So, things happen. We may not have somebody who can be that optimistic person. That's why we created this community. But those are the big important things is we want someone who then, when we do go off, right, they nudge us back, okay? They don't push us back, and they don't, say, "I told you so," but they gently nudge us back. And that could be simply saying, "So which part are you working on today?"
Right.
And sometimes it can be helpful to give them some prompts like that.
Right. That is a nice little reminder. What are you working on today? How can I help you today?
Yeah. What is your next step? And that's one thing that I do tell people all the time when they're implementing this program is to ask for help. And ask those around you for their help specifically, okay? And to always, whenever you make a request for help, to tie it to an emotional reason, okay? So don't say, could you help, I'm going to use house cleaning just as an example because I hear this one a lot. Could you help me and take out the garbage? Okay? That's okay, effective, but if you switch it to an emotional part, okay, you open yourself up a little bit more and you say, you know what, I've really been feeling overwhelmed and there's a lot I need to get done. Mm-hmm. And when you take out the garbage or when you help like that, it really makes me feel like we're a team and it makes me feel better. Mm-hmm. You will see a completely different result.
That does totally changes the connection. We're talking with Brook Noel, the author of the Change Your Life Challenge. We're going to go to our final break today. If you are in the Sprint chat room that Brooke told us about, and you have a question or comment or even just a testimony about the usefulness of this program, please feel free to email me at info@indiebusinessradio.com so we can share your thoughts with listeners. I'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning the new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. We're talking to Brook Noel, the author of the Change Your Life Challenge. And, of course, we are also taking a look, if you can get to the Internet, at her website at maketodaymatter.net. Click on freebies and then click on the snapshot. We're talking about Brook's snapshot, which will give you a snapshot of the different areas of your life that you think you may want to make some change in. And there's 14 areas listed here. So Brook is going to help us sort of understand from other people's experiences which ones seem to tend to make the most difference. And, of course, they all make a difference and everyone's different. But Brook has noticed that certain areas result in desired results, on a larger scale than others. And she's going to tell us what those are. And the first one, Brook, you said, is kind of a little bit expected, and that's attitude. Tell us about that.
Well, the attitude and outlook is essential. It's sort of your emotional multivitamin. If you don't have an attitude that allows you to see opportunity, to think positive, to look for the good, if you're stuck in a situation where you have a lot of anxiety or you're depressed, then that is the first area where there needs to be some attention and some focus. Because without the attitude and the outlook, we can't achieve the contentment. And if we can't achieve the contentment, then really none of the other areas on the snapshot will matter, because we're not going to be content with our results. So it always starts with that attitude and outlook. And, that's so difficult because that's the hardest area, I think, out of every area to work on. Now, if you're naturally blessed with optimism and a great attitude, it's piece of cake, right? But what if you're not? Or what if you just lost someone, or you're going through a time where you are in a depression?
Mm-hmm.
How do you take those steps? And for that, I want to encourage anyone to go to, I believe it's on the freebies page. If not, it's on newsletters. And go to my Good Morning blog or subscribe to the Good Morning newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that book is, Good Morning, 365 Positive Ways to Start Your Day.
Right.
It's a real simple kind of emotional vitamin that you want to consume within about the first hour of waking to get your day off to a good start. And that's just a little simple change people can make to begin working on their attitude and outlook. It's a free service. You get a good morning each day. And we have, you can comment, and we have some discussion about it on the blog, too. But it'll give you just a little way to begin honing and improving that outlook each day. So that's number one, attitude and outlook.
Well, they say attitude is everything, so.
It's definitely the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then you said, now this is kind of surprising, household maintenance.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when people come to the program, or they come and they're looking at, I really need to make some changes in my life, typically they're at a point similar to where I was, that we discussed at the opening of our show, where so many things are shaken. So many things are out of control or unknown. And when things outside the four walls of our home are shaky, one of the areas that can bring us comfort quickly is getting what's inside the four walls of home under control, getting a routine, getting stability. And you hear this all the time, when you're raising children, or even a pet. Stability, routine. That's, they really encourage. Same bedtime, same food times, because that allows people typically, ADD excluded, but typically that will allow people to thrive, is if they have a routine. Because a routine also encompasses time management. You can fit things in. You begin to feel a sense of accomplishment as you mark off the things on your routine, on your household maintenance. When those things are out of control, it can quickly affect your mood. I mean, if you think about the difference of walking into a dingy hotel room versus a nice one, how much environment affects us. So it can also be helpful to look at household tasks in a more significant light. It's not just doing the dishes or doing the vacuuming or the mopping. It's, creating an entire environment or atmosphere, for everyone within that home, and looking at it in a more significant contribution because it is a lot of work. And so we don't want to downplay how important those routines are.
And I would guess, Brooke, that tell me if this is true when you're working with women, that one of the challenges that we face is making sure that our family members and other people who live in the house actually make their fair contribution to that.
That's the biggest one. I can't tell you how many times, I hear, I just cleaned off my dining room table and now it's covered with papers.
Right, and you didn't put them there, someone else did.
Exactly, or somebody brings in, their work boots. And it goes back to that same thing, to connect emotionally with that person and explain what you're trying to contribute and how that makes you feel. Not to get upset and just get, no one else ever helped clean up, not to go into that mode, but to say, you know what, I really need this work to be respected. And when you do that, I feel like you don't appreciate, if that's how you feel, of course, but, this is what I would say to my husband, would be, when you do that, I feel like you don't appreciate the time I put into that. I feel like I'm not getting respected for my contribution. And if I connect with him like that, sure enough, dishes will go into the dishwasher. Things will change. But if I were just to say, am I the only person who puts the dishes in the dishwasher, I'm not going to get a result.
Right, because that's kind of like whining.
There's no motivation, right? There's no, how does his contribution then help? And we have to quote unquote, sell our family members, sell our close significant others, that they're making a difference. They're not doing it because they're being told to,
right,
or because it's just to help you, but they are actually influencing then and making a true difference.
Making a positive contribution to the atmosphere, the environment, as you described. So after you sit down and have that quick chat with your husband, is the next step, or significant other, Brooke, is the next step to then say, okay, what can we do together to, set up, as you mentioned earlier, some sort of structure or routine so this doesn't continue to happen?
Well, there's two ways, and it really depends on the person that you're working with. One would be to say, okay, let's really get on board as a team to make this happen. I've generated a list of all the tasks that we do in this house. Let's go around and each pick one until they're all picked. Okay?
Right.
Do that with kids. Or, Joey, you have more time than I do. You have to pick two for every one. Make it fair, right?
Right.
That's one way, truly team approach. The other way is if you have someone where, all of these things are challenging. You're listening to this going, oh my gosh, this is how this person will react. First of all, make sure you ask anyway, because a lot of times we assume how someone will respond without ever giving them the chance to respond, and then we make it so. So if we assume our spouse won't help, and we don't ask, of course they won't help, right? So we have to at least ask.
Right.
So that reminder. But if you cannot create then the team environment that you're seeking, then focus on the positive. Praise the positive. So when they do take out the garbage without you asking, just focus on that. And say, hey, I noticed you took that out. Thanks. I was so busy today that really reduced my stress load. It was just kind of a great treat. I really appreciate it, and then done. Don't mention all the things that aren't getting done. It's in that respect, it's like a puppy, you enforce the positive, or like a child, and you don't give attention to the negative if you're in an environment or in a relationship where there's too much negativity already.
And we could all use positive reinforcement. Who couldn't use that? Brooke, we have an email from one of the women in your Take Your Life Challenge program. I'd like to share it with you. It's from Sandy Wood in Rochester, New York, and she says, I am currently in the Housework Helpers chat room. I am a host there and a member of the Make Today Matters online program. The snapshot has helped me greatly in determining the priorities of my life, Sandy says. I'm currently working on my goals for 2009 in Brooke's Goals class. My house and life are much more organized and more calm since participating in the program. I have been a member here for almost a year now and did the Change Your Life Challenge prior to the start of the Make Today Matter program, and she's excited to be listening to you today on the show. So Brooke, Sandy's an example of someone who's taken advantage of this and been helped by it.
Yes, and, hi, Sandy, and girls who are in there. That's so fun. I love that.
It is, isn't it?
But, Sandy, she said she was a host, and I want to tell you what that means, too, because Sandy not only took the steps, made the changes, worked through each step of the program in the toolbox, she then took the next step and said, I want to give back. I want to give back to other women and to the community. And that's what our hosts are. Those are volunteers and she's moderating that room right now. And those are people that are giving back and helping other women because they've made improvements in their own life. So it's sort of the pay it forward. People make
How great is that? Well, Angela in Texas is Vicki is sending you hugs on behalf of her and Angela in Texas, who were saying that they're also benefiting from the program. Vicki and Angela, thanks so much for listening in. It is wonderful to be able to have people who will, not only take advantage, but then after they benefit, be able to help other people. That's such a great program and attitude that you're fostering there, Brooke. So we've covered attitudes, household management, and the third thing that you see most frequently is time management and self-care. Tell us about that as we close it out.
Okay. Hi, Vicki and Angela. All right. Time management and self-care. We talked about the self-care a little bit earlier, but we have to create the time to care for self in order to make the changes in the other areas. We'll often see this, and this is important when we talk about resolutions in 2009. People make resolutions, they make goals without going back to time, time management or self-time. Where are you going to carve out the time to achieve this desired result? So we have to be able to control our time and direct it into the areas we want to change. For example, if we decide that we're going to exercise this year, then we have to take a realistic look at our calendar last year and say, where does it go? If we didn't do it last year, we're not going to get more minutes in 2009 than we did 2008. Mm-hmm. Might be a leap year. Maybe we get one more minute, but certainly not enough to exercise, 5 days a week.
Right.
We need to make sure that we truly approach any goal or any change with that reality check. Do I have the time to do this? Where am I going to put this? Where is the time going to come from? And that's what the snapshot helps you do, too, just by looking at your priorities and looking at those life areas. It helps you realize this is where you do need to spend your time. And often that means cutting back in some of the other areas.
Well, you have to. I mean, if there's only 24 hours in a day and you back out your sleep time and everything else is full, then you have to do an exchange, right?
Well, yes, and you also have to, and I teach this when I teach time management, you also have to leave the life interrupt space every day. When I plan my day, 35% of my day is blank, okay? Every single day, 35% is penciled as nothing. Of course, something happens. That 35% is always taken up by something, right? But it's something I can't predict, okay? Because life happens every single day. My daughter forgets a school book, or forgets her lunch money, or we have some customer service issues that I want to help with,
right.
Or something comes up. And what we tend to do is we tend to schedule ourselves minute to minute like the president and not allow for life to happen in there. And that causes two problems. One, we can miss a lot of magical moments because we don't have time to enjoy them. Or two, we set ourselves up for failure because there's no time in there to truly, adapt, pursue, revamp, or revise what it is we're trying to pursue to create that contentment and create the happiness.
Wow. It really does point out how very interconnected things are and how helpful this snapshot can be for anybody who's getting started and also connecting with other people. Thanks for joining us today, Brooke. I'd like to ask you if you could share with everyone the best place to connect with you, how to get in touch with you, and learn more about what you're doing and get your book.
Sure. To connect, go to maketodaymatter.net, and that'll explain the program that we were talking about. You can also click on Shop, and you can learn about the book, but we have a special going on right now, too. We have a free 7-day challenge coming up. It's going to start January 26th. You get a free workbook, and if you buy the book at, there's a couple of different stores listed on the site, and you send in the receipt, you get the free workshop. You also get a free month of membership. So you may want to check that out. It's that virtual tour. But anyone can take part in the free workshop, whether you own the book or not. And you'll learn about that at maketodaymatter.net and click virtual tour at the top. And there's a help link, help or customer service at the top. If you submit a ticket there, it'll land at my desk if you need to reach me directly.
Excellent. And there's a link on your homepage, is there, to your blog? You mentioned a Good Morning blog.
Yes, that's on the freebies section.
Okay.
We'll take you to the Good Morning.
Okay, so it's within the maketodaymatter.net website.
It's actually at brooknoelstudio.com.
Okay. Okay.
Good Morning /. So it's a longer one.
Okay, but ultimately we can link to it from maketodaymatter.net.
Yep, you'll find it there. It's also right on the back of the Good Morning book, which I think you have there.
Excellent. And so for all of you out there, once again, let me just say that Brooke's most recent book is the Change Your Life Challenge, and also Good Morning, 365 Positive Ways to Start Your Day. But when I said buy Brooke's book, I should have said books, because this woman's written 19 or 20 women's empowerment books that affect our lives positively on one level or another. So there's a lot of depth of information here that we can all draw from. And, of course, the connection with other women that you can enjoy at her website is powerful as well. Brooke, thanks for taking the time to join us today. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. It was absolutely great.
Next week, on January 19th, everyone, I want you to know that Rieva Lazonsky, the former editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, will be joining me to talk about keeping a business afloat or even starting a business in tough economic times. And we all know we can read the papers and all the CNN reports and everything that tell us how tough it is, but I think that this is the best time to either start a business or really ramp up the one that you have. And Rieva Lazonsky agrees. And she's going to be here to tell us all about it next week, January 19th, right here on IndieBusinessRadio.com. I'll see you then. In the meantime, enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.